they ask a very specific question that only the real CEO would be able to answer. And then when the fake person, the fake CEO, was not able to answer that question, they identified it was a scam. That was the case that they shared at this site this year. Very interesting.
From orchestrating a global encryption migration of 18,000 devices to helping enterprises enforce zero trust at scale, today's guest knows identity isn't just technology, it's trust, process, and people. He's also lived the challenge of reinventing life and career after moving from Brazil to the US, and we are going to talk about all of it. Welcome to the LufSec podcast, where we dive into the mind shaping cybersecurity from every angle. I'm Luciano Ferrari, and today I'm joined by Rodrigo Chaves de Oliveira, a security solutions engineer at Microsoft with 20 plus years in enterprise security, specializing in identity and access management, threat protection, and zero trust architectures. Rodrigo, welcome.
Hey, Luciano, thank you for inviting me to our new project, your podcast.
Thank you so much. Hey, let's start this, okay? So when did cybersecurity first click for you? Was there a moment where systems stopped feeling like IT plumbing and started feeling like a heartbeat or trust?
It was about 20 years ago. In my first job, I started as an intern and then I got promoted to network administrator. So it was a kind of mix between IT infrastructure and also managing firewalls, Windows devices, not only from the Windows perspective, but also antivirus, anything like that. And that was my first experience with cybersecurity. So at that time, I didn't know about, hey, this is cybersecurity. It was just part of my job, my responsibility to keep the environment running. But at the same time, I started learning, hey, I have to, for example, keep the environment safe based on not on my knowledge, but the tools that I have.
Awesome. And Brazilian beginnings, right? So you built your early career in Brazil, working across finance, healthcare, telecom. So what was the security landscape like there when you started, and what did you learn from operating in that environment?
Yeah, that's interesting because, like I said, it was 20 years ago. So at that time, when we talked about security, it was a kind of overall vision that, hey, if you have a good firewall, if you had a good antivirus in your environment, you're safe. So that was my start pointing with cybersecurity. Like I said, I was responsible for managing the environment. And then part of that, I had to manage the firewall to protect the environment from the internet. And also it was an engine fire to protect from different branches that we had.
Awesome. And you reorganized Active Directory access controls and introduced privileged access management principles long before zero trust was kind of a trendy. What's one tactical fix that immediately reduced blast radius, something any company could replicate in a week?
Yeah, this is more a recent experience that I had when working for my current employer. Because if we consider, for example, identity in the past only, for example, with Active Directory, basically we had users, group, computers, the on-premises environment, and obviously we used to apply controls to grant or deny rights to users. For example, if you are from an HR department, you cannot access for example, files or sensitive documents from IT and vice versa. But considering the tier modeling, anything like that, I believe it's more recent from the past, I would say 5 to 6 years. when, at least for me, in my experience, many attackers not started to attacking Active Directory because this is not new. This is not from the past 7 years. It's even older than that. But was when I started working on that and having real experience on that. Say, hey, I don't know. I don't need only to keep my environment health running, but I also need to protect that. So there are many different configurations that attacker might exploit that to leverage, to, how can I say that, to exploit and get access to the environment, not only to get access, but also to keep persistence. So that was when I started looking to Active Directory differently, saying, hey, I also have to review everything that I know about this technology and consider the mindset of the attacker. So what could the attacker exploit in my environment? And then apply some controls. Not only blocking configurations, but also apply some monitoring, some process, because it's not only about technical. You also have to change your mindset and keep monitoring environment, for example, for any changes in sensitive groups or some configurations.
Yeah, people, process, technology.
Exactly. So
yeah. So Crisis School, right? You've helped customers recover AD in Windows environments after attacks with Microsoft DART team, right?
it is the format for the incident response team.
So what's the one identity misstep you still see again and again during post-breach recovery today?
I believe there's one specific configuration in AG, which is admin SG holder, that usually attackers, when they compromise the environment, they change that to keep persistent. For example, let's suppose you are the attacker and you compromise in my AG environment, right? In order to keep your access at the domain level, you are not only getting, for example, your fake account as a domain administrator, because this is pretty easy to identify and remove this access. So you can go to the admin ST holder and then change the security descriptor to make sure your account, even though it's not member of the domain admin group, you can have administrative rights on the domain. So basically there's a process, SGProp, that runs every hour on the pitch simulator that will reveal this. And if the configuration is not as it's established in the admin ST holder, it will enforce that. So usually people don't know about admin ST holder and SGProp. So they ensure the groups are with the proper users, but I cannot say forget because they don't know. It's a kind of misconfiguration.
It's a good advice. Yep.
Okay.
Now let's go to mentors and relationships. So you wrote that the real legacy we leave isn't just the results we deliver, but the connections we build. So who mentored or inspired you early on, and how did that shape the way you mentor others today?
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. So this is more a reflection that I've been having. So I believe you got that from my last LinkedIn post, right? So because I was working with my career mentor, which is Andrea Trench, she's also Brazilian. And during a master class with other students that she has, we were discussing about many different topics. And I remember that one mentee asked that question, hey, I don't have a good relationship with my manager, and he's a very influential person in my city because I live in a small city. If I want to move to a different job, his influence might block me even if I'm going to another employer and etc. And this was the trigger for me to start reflecting on that, because uh, most of the time, most of the people that I engage, that I have a relationship, not only my professional life, but also in my personal life, I have good experience. And I think they have good experience with me as well. But we cannot say that, hey, this is 100% of the time. It's so common, it's normal to meet people that maybe you are not aligned. Maybe their values are different than mine. I believe it's common. It's not a problem. And sometimes you have to work with people like this. And my reflection was about that, saying, hey, uh, I cannot take just one or two experience with one or two different people and take that as something that will define me or define my career or define my life. So I have to reflect and look back and say, hey, look how many people I had the opportunity, I had experience to work with, and then the experience is positive, always positive. So that was my reflection on that case. But answering your question about mentors, mentees, and etc. So the the term mentor and mentee for me, uh, it started to be normal when I joined in Microsoft 11 years ago. Before that, it was more like informal conversations. But when I joined Microsoft, Microsoft has this culture. So, for example, when you join Microsoft, usually you have one process mentor, one technical mentor. So you have, it could be the same person, but usually it's not. Usually you have two or three different mentors. And this is a formal process. So it was now 11 years ago. So time flies. So uh, that that that's when I learned the formal process about mentor, and I had the opportunity to have good mentors when I joined in Microsoft. And after some time, I had the opportunity to become mentor as well. My goal not only was but is, if I have people that I have to be their mentor, I want to give them good experience. So the first step that I take usually is, hey, I'm here to help you. It doesn't mean that I know everything. This is a process that I will also learn from you. I may have more experience about this process that I'm going to lead the mentor, but it doesn't mean that I will have all the answers that you're looking for. Maybe we'll have to look for the answer together and learn together as well. So I had the opportunity to have good mentors when I joined in Microsoft. And the experience that I had was so helpful and so good for me that I want to replicate that. I want to be the role model for others the same way that others were for me.
Yeah, and then that was really strong because, I can see that, right? Now let's talk about the move, Brazil to US. And that we have in common, right? Because I did the same thing. So the question that I have for you is, so you made this jump from São Paulo to the US. It was a massive life pivot. So what was the hardest part? The bureaucracy, the culture, the loneliness, or something else entirely?
I believe uh, there is no an easy and quick answer for this question. Because at the same time that I really wanted to have this experience living here in the US, uh, this process has not been easy for me for many different reasons. So, first, when I received the offer to move to the US, it was in 2021. So, COVID time. But yeah, it started with the pandemic. My daughter was maybe 8, 9 months old. And then after some time waiting for the visa, work visa, anything like that, we could relocate it. Initially, I moved it from São Paulo to Redmond, which is in Washington State, very close to Seattle. The movement was not so hard initially because Microsoft was very good to me. They paid for everything for my move. But after some time, my wife got pregnant and she had some challenges, especially after the first kid that we had in Brazil. She had some complications during the labor. And it was maybe 3 or 4 months after we moved it to Redmond. So she had some challenges during the pregnancy. It was not easy for us because I was new in the team, new in the country, new in the city. So it was a process that we were looking for the apartment, to rent an apartment, a lot of things happening at the same time. But not only this about the personal challenges that it had, but even from the work perspective, everything was new for me. It was a different team, people from different countries, different cultures. I had to adapt to that. After some time, I had an accident. I broke my arm. Everything happening at the same time. So that's why it was very challenging for us. It was not only, hey, I'm moving from Brazil to a new country. Many different things happening. So this impacted, for example, my mental health, not only mine, but also my wife got impacted as well. At the same time, 2 kids growing up in a new country without anyone close to us to support that. So as an immigrant, I believe you are how challenging this is, having kids without, for example, your parents or your in-laws close to you to support you when you need. So that was the main challenge for us. Not only the work that I had to perform every single day, or not only adapt to the culture, new language. Even though we speak English, in Brazil we speak Portuguese. Many people think that we speak Spanish. No, we speak Portuguese. It's not our primary language. So many things happening at the same time. But after 3.5 years, I can say, hey, I believe we're more stable now. We are start to living the best of our lives. Any other questions related to the movement? Because if I have to describe everything that happened, it would take us a lot of time.
No, I know. I can drive, and I know how difficult it is. I passed through similar experience. I hope that those things could be easily, but unfortunately, they are not. It
Yeah.
is what it is. Now, let's talk about a different aspect of that change. So, this immigration and identity. So, how did that move change your sense of professional identity? So, did you have to reprove yourself in a new language or system?
Not in a new language or in a new system, but considering that I moved from one team that I used to support external customers, and now I have internal customers, I had to prove myself in that way. So I had not only, hey, I'm bringing a lot of experience working with not only different people, but different environments. And I had to prove myself, not only technically, but say, hey, I have this experience. I know what I'm doing. So it was initially a challenge to manage some conflicts of ideas. But I believe now we're good.
Advice for aspiring migrants. So, what advice would you give to other Brazilian or Latin America professionals dreaming to work in US cybersecurity? What practical steps or mindset shifts will make the difference for them?
Last week, I was talking to a friend who wants to have this experience. And usually Brazilians, they are so concerned about the language, about English. At least this is my experience. And what I can say, if any Brazilian that's watching us right now that has this dream to, for example, live in the US, yes, English is very important. I believe you should speak confidently, you should understand, but sometimes we are so harsh with ourselves. I know this is a requisite that you have to have if you want to live and work legally in the US, but don't be harsh to yourself. Just enjoy the process. Also, if you can plan for this movement ahead, this will be very useful for you. Not only considering airfare, where you're going to live, job, anything like that, but everything that you can plan. If you can, for example, talk to people that are close to you that has been living this experience, I would encourage you to do that because many people, including from my family, that sees us live in the US say, hey, they have the perfect life. But that's not true. So if you have anyone that you can talk to about, hey, how the immigrant life is, talk to that people. They will help you to understand the challenges that you have when you are an immigrant.
Thanks for that. I'm pretty sure that a lot of people will be thankful for this advice too. Now let's fast forward to today. So you are deep in zero trust, identity governance, and defender integration. So what the job is now? So what does security solutions engineering actually do day to day when your levers are identity detection and governance?
Yeah. So we work with Defender for Identity in my team, which is one solution that we have in the Defender XDR, which is a suite of Microsoft that we have Defender for Identity, Defender for Endpoint, Defenders for Ops, and many other solutions. So in my team, considering we are an identity team, we leverage Defender for Identity. We also use Sentinel, where we receive different information, different logs from different systems that we manage, not only from the identity itself, but we have uh, other systems that kind of compound our identity system, for example, for monitoring, for telemetry, anything like that. Uh, th- that th- those are the two that I can remember right now. That's are most important for us from the security side.
So 76% reduction story. Okay, I got that from
Mhm.
you. So you achieved a 76% reduction in insecure authentication protocols. So how did you pull that off? So what data or kind of a dashboard convinced leaders it was safe to titer?
Yeah, that was an interesting project that not only I had to work on that, but also a peer of mine. So basically, everything came to us from the security perspective. We are using legacy protocols and also legacy encryption types. So if you work in a company that has a red team and they perform a pen test in your environment, they will easily identify legacy configurations, for example, because they are not breaking anything. They are just taking everything that is, how can I say that, known vulnerability, and then they will exploit that. So basically, we identified that we are running legacy protocols, legacy encryption types, and then we started digging in the information. Say, hey, let me understand what I have in my environment. So, like I said, we have Sentinel, so we have all the information available there. And then based on that, we started building some Power BI dashboards to understand the threat that we had. And then based on that, we focus on what he call top talkers, because it's not only regular accounts. When I say regular accounts, I say, hey, my account, your account. But we do have many service accounts or application accounts, which is, in my opinion, more critical than just, for example, my credential. And then based on this data, we started taking actions. Say, hey, these not only about the numbers, not only about the traffic, but also about the exposure risk. And then we came from almost 1 billion authentication tracks per week to 250 million per week.
Were you expecting that?
No.
That's amazing. There is another story that I saw. 18,000 devices encryption migration. So walk me through that migration. Where did resistance, pop up, like tech process, people, and what decision kept it on track?
Yeah, that was an easy one. Not to achieve these numbers, but to convince customer, for example, to migrate to our solution, because they already had a solution for that, but the solution was not 100% complete. And that's something that I really like in my previous role, because I had to go on site with customer. It was not remote. So most of the time I was join meetings with them, listen to what they need, and then I could contribute with ideas. And then I remember this case, they had a solution with another vendor, and they started discussing about that, the pain points, the challenges that they have. And then I remember, hey, what about we try the solution that Microsoft has for this? And then, hey, that could be a good idea. And then I helped them with a POC, proof of concept. And then I remember it was interesting. During the POC, the IT manager at that time, while the test laptop was encrypting the operating system, he just turned off the computer. Let's see if this is going to work. And then turn on the laptop again. And then the laptop turned on. Operating system was running as expected. And then the encryption was resumed at the same point it was when he turned off the laptop.
Wow.
When I say it was easy, because I was with them, I was close to them, I was paying attention to their needs. And then we had this proof of concept, so they could be confident in the solution that we had. And then after the project, they were able to migrate all the devices.
That's pretty cool. Another one that I got, 15K plus Windows modernization unlock. So you resolved a critical blocker that enabled 50,000 machines to upgrade and adopt Microsoft 365. So what was blocking then, and how did you clear it?
Yeah, that was a huge customer in Latin America. It was a public sector in São Paulo state. They were trying to move from, at that time, Windows 7 to Windows 10. And this was also important to Microsoft to get customer to Windows 10 because of the cloud strategy. And they had an application that was not compatible with Windows 10. And this was really critical for them. It was not a business application. It was an IT application. But it was critical to them. And they said, hey, if I cannot get this application running on Windows 10, I cannot move. I will stay in Windows 11. Everything will be like this. So this was the main blocker. So basically, the accounting, they asking me if I could do anything related to that. So basically, what I did was to understand the application and see if there would be any viable and supported way to get a similar application running on Windows 10. That was what I did. So basically, I understood. I got access to the source code in that application. Not only this, but I also talked to the users, to the IT technicians that were working on this tool every single day, trying to understand their usage, the challenges, what a kind of a new solution should provide in order to replace that, but making sure this would run on Windows 10. So basically, this was the blocker. What I did was kind of playing with Lego, taking different components and putting them together in order to replace that application. So this was my action. It could be a pretty simple action, but I try to envision the reasons behind of that. So for the customer, it was a modernization for the environment. So they were able to migrate from the legacy Exchange server, for example, to Exchange Online, which was also a strategic movement for my employer.
Those are amazing stories. I'll change a little bit, but still in the present. Zero trust without jargons. So can you translate zero trust into 3 concrete moves? 1 preventive, 1 detective, and 1 responsive?
So the way that I understand zero trust is, even for example, here in my house, we have talked about that before. I have, for example, different VLANs for different purpose. So the way that I see and I understand zero trust is, hey, I know I manage my network. I know I have, for example, a firewall, which is very well configured. So, but even though I usually, for example, double check the configurations, I double check, for example, my VLANs because I have some IoT devices that I don't know what they do. So I cannot trust them. So that's why I have my VLANs. That's why they are isolated. So I believe it's a simple concept. So I just don't trust. I just prefer verify and make sure that everything is in the right place. Now, I'm not sure I answered your question, but that's my vision, for example, for zero trust. It's a cliche when you say, hey, never trust, always verify, but that's the truth.
No, I like that answer. Let's talk about governance is fine. So how do you structure RBAC, PIM, GIT, and policy as guardrails so developers can ship fast without creating shadow admins?
Interesting. I don't have to manage this kind of situation because I work in a very small team. We are not developers. We are just security engineers. But about governance, identity governance, and connected to the zero trust, for example, if you're a developer or it doesn't matter your role, if you have any privilege account, it's when I say privilege account for those that are not familiar with those terms, I mean, for example, I have my account where, for example, I can check my mails, I can browse the internet, but I also perform different tasks in my systems. It could be any system. So if you have any account that grants you access as an admin, you should have governance for that. For example, you talked about being privileged, identity managed. So this is a good strategy. For example, if you have an account like that with a administrative access, for example, and this admin access is present in the account 100% of the time. If this account is compromised, the permissions are already set for that account. So you could have a big problem. But when you, for example, implement some governance, for example, leverage your team, what you could do is, hey, if you need to, for example, ship uh, a code, if you have, for example, to get a pull request approved, if you have to do anything that requires a different permission, instead of having an account that has the access all the time, what you could do, hey, what time do you need that access? For example, today from 7 to 9, you could go and then elevate this access for the time you want, for the time that you need. Another thing that you can do to improve security is, hey, you're not only going and elevating your access, but for example, you could have a peer review or your manager review that request and then approve that for you.
Yeah, I like that. It's a good approach. Defender signals that matters. So where do Defender for identity and Defender for cloud earn their keep? So if you could tune, right, one noisy alert category tomorrow to cut dwell time, which would it be?
Oh, that's pretty interesting. In my opinion, uh, it would depend on the environment. But for example, there are a lot of alerts like reconnaissance or discovery that if you don't tune them, you are gonna receive a lot of them, and that could be a kind of blur for a SOC when working with many different alerts.
Yeah, that's true. Now, automation that leads. So you built PowerShell and CI/CD automation pipelines. So which one changed your daily life? So and how did you keep it alive past month 3?
Oh, I created a lot of scripts during my career, especially in PowerShell, not only for me, but mainly for my customers. So I cannot recall a single one, but recently we have been trying to automate a lot of monitoring, especially for detection. So I cannot say, hey, this one script should do that. But recently, uh, like I said, working with monitoring detection in order to identify any deviation or in a configuration or in a security configuration, anything like that.
Community and belonging. So you jumped into Besides Orlando, right? That was a couple of days ago as attendee and volunteer. So what did that event teach you about the US security community and what did you bring from Brazilian InfoSec culture into that space?
Yeah. To be honest, Besides was not only the first event that I attended in the US in cybersecurity, but this was the first one in my entire career. And it's interesting because, like I said, I attended that event and also volunteered that. So for me, it was uh, very helpful because I was missing this social engagement, especially after COVID, relocating to the US, working remotely almost all the time. But it was a good experience for me to engage with the community, to meet new people, to talk, because we have been talking a lot about cyber, about career, but going back to the beginning. So 20 years ago when I started my career, it was only firewall and basically antivirus. And then my career kind of changed to a more IT role than cybersecurity. And after these many years, I'm getting back to the cyber. I'm trying to expand to different domains, not only identity, and engage with the community was very good because I had a mindset say, hey, I'm way behind the community when we talk about cyber. and talking to people say, hey, okay, even though I've been with Microsoft for 11 years now, I'm familiar with their products, their suite of products, and etc. Talking to the community, listen to them, said, hey, you are not so behind. Obviously, you have to keep studying, keeping getting more and more engagement with the community with different aspects of cyber. But that was the main learn for me attending the conference this year.
Now, working remotely, right, in a global Microsoft team, how do you maintain a sense of belonging and identity while operating across cultures and time zones?
Okay, got it. So even we work remotely, not only me, but everyone, my team, we have been working remotely since the COVID. Uh, we engage with each other basically every day. It's not like you're going to the same office and sharing the office and talking to people. It's not like that. But not only the regular meetings that we have to keep the business running, but we usually talk to each other. Uh, ob- Obviously, there are some people that I have closer relationship than others. Uh, but it's not a problem, at least for me or for my team. Uh, we have this sense of belonging, like you asked, because I, I don't know if I can say that, but usually we engage more with people that we work with than our family,
True.
even remotely. So from at least from 9 to 6, I'm working all this time. So I'm engaged with my team, talking to them, and I cannot even say how it would be if it was on site because for 3 years I've been working remotely with them. So
That's curious. Okay, now we move a little bit more now for kind of a future, right? So you recently highlighted a talk on deepfakes and AI scams. So what controls can actually blunt those attacks, technically or cultural?
yeah, deepfake, it's it's really interesting. This was one of the talks that we had at Besides this year, and I'm amazed at how sophisticated this kind of attack is, and I cannot even imagine how the future will be with that. But about scams using deepfake or anything like that, uh, for example, I usually talk to my mother in Brazil and say, "Hey, at least in Brazil, it's so common people trying to scam you to get any benefit from you." And then I usually talk to my mom, "Hey, don't answer anything to the people. Uh, be careful with the information that you provide about you, about me, about my sister, about anyone. First, you have to verify as much as you can who you are talking to, if it's legit or not. For example, it's pretty common in Brazil, people use WhatsApp from text message. Instead of using just the text message that you have on your cell phone, people use WhatsApp. And then it's pretty common people trying to impersonating others. This is one level of scam, but when you talk about deep fake, it's a very different level that even the debate say, hey, let's have a video call, could be hard to identify if it's you or not. So I believe one way to not to prevent, but not
Yeah, but
to,
before you talk about the prevention, so can you, um, you know, share to everybody some the one case that you talked to me about the Ferrari that was on the conference?
oh yeah, so the speaker shared that. So they uh, said that is a real case about Ferrari, where if I'm not wrong, the CFO was in a conversation with the CEO. At least he initially thought it was the CEO or anything like that. And during the conversation, it was weird because it was his voice, his face. And then he started suspecting, hey, it's not like the CEO. And then they asked a question, say, hey, what was the last book you suggested me to read? So they ask a very specific question that only the real CEO would be able to answer. And then when the fake person, the fake CEO, was not able to answer that question, they identified it was a scam. That was the case that they shared at besides this year. Very interesting.
That was an interesting one. Yeah. So now we can, you get in that line, so you can talk now about prevention. So that case, they use some kind of a process to verify, right? But if you have any other thing in mind, right, that you also would like to add.
Yeah. Two different cases. Like I was talking to my mom, the WhatsApp scams usually say, hey, for example, if someone is trying to impersonate me, it's a very simple scam. They they create a new WhatsApp account. They take any picture of me that could be on any social media. They put that as a profile picture, and then they start sending messages to people say, hey, this is my new number. Could you please give me some money because I forgot, for example, to pay some bills? Usually I tell my mom, hey, if this happens, do not do anything. Do not send money. You can, for example, hit the button and have a video call. And then you're going to see if it's me or not, if it's my sister or not. But with the deep fakes, hey, this is really hard. So this example of the Ferrari, I believe it's a good case. So if you're suspecting you're not talking to the people you really know, uh, I believe a way to escape from this kind of scam is asking questions that only the real person would be able to answer.
Yeah, that's true. Or sometimes I saw other processes that works not only for kind of a deep fakes, but even for all like a regular spear features and that kind of stuff. For example, if somebody asked you something, so you believe is the CEO, then contact back the person with a method that you know, like his email or his phone that you know, and call back or send him a, hey, did you really ask this? So do you really want me to go forward with this? So normally, that also gets the if the situation is really, not true, right? Yeah. Anyway, continuous access elevation. So if you could redesign continuous access evaluation from scratch, what new signals would you feed into, to cut lateral movement? Career runway, right? So if you curate free learning and cert paths for the community, okay? Give us like a 90-day plan for a sysadmin wanting to pivot into identity security, like labs, certs, or one like a ship it project.
I would recommend to go to Microsoft Learn because when you talk about identity, Microsoft is still one of the top vendors in the industry. So there's the SC900 certification, which is Security and Compliance Fundamentals. This would be a good start. After that, there's also the SC300, which is the identity specific. I forgot the title, but the exam is SC300, which is Microsoft. I believe it's Microsoft Identity Administrator, with focus on intra IG, identity governance, identity protection. So, and all the certifications path for them, we can find that for free on Microsoft Learn, which is a very well organized website that covers almost everything that you need to be successful in these areas.
Awesome. Now, AI. So how do you think AI is going to change the future for the security community?
What I think it's about the power of automation that it has with AI. For example, I'm not a pen tester. I'm not expert on that, but I know there are many, for example, tools that you can use to automate your pen test or even your attacks. So if you take that and start applying AI for everything that you have in a pen test, it could be discovery or even automation uh, to to test many different paths to identify vulnerabilities. Uh, I know there are many people already doing that, but this is for me is awesome because many things that you used to have to type and test manually, you can delegate that to AI and get this done much faster than you would do that manually.
What about quantum computing?
Can you imagine mixing quantum computing and AI?
Interesting, yes. Is there any other thing you'd like to share today?
Something that I believe it's interesting that some people asking me at beside these years, hey, you have been working for Microsoft for 11 years. Is that so hard to join Microsoft? And then I could talk to some people and say, hey, I cannot give you the answer for you if it's easy or if it's hard. What I can share is how my process was when I joined in Microsoft and my experience when I was interviewing for my previous team. So usually the technical interviews are the challenge for technical roles as well. But if anyone is trying to join Microsoft, that would be my advice. So make sure you read the job description, make sure you have a good knowledge about the products, because this will be the main challenge, in my opinion, when interviewing for a technical role.
Awesome. So now it's time for our LufSec fire questions. It should be like a quick, instinctive answers only. Don't think too much, okay? And it's going to be fun. Favorite hacking movie?
Does it count if I say any TV show, like, for example, CSI, that you have some people kind of, hey, let me access their firewall, and in 2 seconds they got access to any firewall? Yeah. Now, for example, you have many TV shows that have some episodes like that. So they talk, for example, to a special way. I can remember a TV show. I don't remember the name, but there used to be a character called Aaron from FBI, and he's the IT expert for them. And it's really interesting how easy he get access to any system.
The Blacklist?
Yes, the Blacklist. Yes, that's the TV show.
Gotcha. Cool. That's a good one. I'll put that one here.
Not a movie, but not a movie about hacking, but I remember this character Aaron doing miracles in seconds.
That's true. That was fun. Most underrated security tool?
The most underrated security tool. Anyone that has the JIT, just in time access. People
Coffee.
usually don't give credit to this kind of tool, the benefit it provides.
Coffee, tea, or energy drinks?
Energy drinks.
A dream keynote speaker you would love to hear?
Simon Sinek.
Fun. Hey, Rodrigo, thank you so much for sharing your time, stories, and insights. from zero trust to, immigration and identity in every sense of the word. And thanks to everyone listening. Stay curious, stay secure, and we'll see you the next time on LufSec. Thank you.
Thank you, Luciano. Bye.